throughout the week. Actually, starting with the spirit guidance last Friday, I've really been dwelling on pause. Pause and purpose. I've noticed a lot of people are feeling a pause lately. It seems to be endemic. And often when there's a pause, the first thing we start to feel is like, ooh, what did I do wrong? Or, why aren't things working like they normally do? And I think that's a very human response to feel that way. Because it's not all about feelings, really. As humans, we really like to feel something. I'm not feeling it is a pretty normal kind of phrase these days, isn't it? And if you're not feeling it, then you don't do it. And I think it's important that, there are some things that you do anyway, whether you're feeling it or not. And it's not a test. It's like sitting down for 10 minutes each day. You might have 10 minutes where you're sitting there breathing and that's it. No revelations, no nice warm juicy feeling of spirit, but you do it anyway because it's part of a practice that isn't really just there for spiritual reasons or to give you a pat on the back because you're doing the right thing. If nothing else, it's helping you physically to reset on one level or another. Because we are, as they say, a four-body being. We've got our physical, emotional, mental and spiritual bodies. And that's a very sort of lumpy description of our being, because there's many dimensions, but pretty much they're the major four layers, if you want to call them that. I mean, when you take a breath, there has to be a pause before the out-breath. And there's a pause before the in-breath. There has to be a pause. Otherwise you just keep breathing out. When you throw a ball up in the air, when it reaches its is it a periphery? Is that the right word, Kath? You'd know, you're scientific. Reaches its periphery, I think the word is. It stops. At that moment in time, the ball is not moving. And the ball goes, oh, I'm not moving. And then it falls down again. There has to be a pause before there's a change of direction. Yeah. And very often, as human beings who have programmed pretty much to keep moving, they even tell us stories about sharks, don't they? So if a shark doesn't keep moving, then apparently it dies or something bad happens to it. I don't know quite what the real story is. But I've scuba dived, I've seen sharks sitting still on the bottom of the ocean. Goodness me, what a load of codswallop or something. Yeah, but you got to be like a shark. You got to keep moving, otherwise you stagnate or something bad happens to you. And it's interesting because Sigrid and I were talking about before we started. We were talking about how it's quite natural to have two sleeps. Apparently, it's quite a natural human biorhythm. If we didn't have lighting, we would probably all fall asleep around about 6:30 or something, whatever time it gets dark. And after 4 or 5 hours, our biorhythms would wake up and we'd be awake in the middle of the night. and then we'd have a couple of hours of doing whatever it was, and go back to sleep. And that's apparently a natural rhythm.
And
They've
that
even
is purposely, or sorry, that is purposely changed because the companies want you in the morning and awake. And if you have a break in the night and do things, you wake up too late. So they have educated us to learn this. Like my mother said, the sleep before 12 is the best one, and so on. Nobody told me about this, but I saw it on Facebook that the natural thing is the two-phase sleep. Being
mm,
awake in the night is not insomnia, and they call this time the God's hour.
mm, yeah, it's time to connect. Yeah, or do some exercise like you did this morning. But we've been industrialized
Yeah,
out of that, both through technology, through lighting, so we can stay up later, and also through, as you say, Sigrid, quite rightly, through programming. The Industrial Revolution needed people to wake up bright and sparky in the morning, not be sleeping in and lazing around, had to get to the factory and start to produce. Yeah, so there's a lot of that sort of thinking.
and the same with food. They educate us to eat, put a pacifier in the mouth for a baby, for example. It's more for the parents to have calmness from the baby. And in earlier times, people did not eat for weeks or so. And when there, or days or so, or there was one meal. And when there was food, they ate. It's
Mm,
not normal to eat 3 times a day, but we have learned it so properly that we think you must eat. You have not eaten. It's lunchtime, it's breakfast time, whatever.
yeah, this is true. So I guess the point is that we get pushed so far from our natural rhythms that we become, I guess it's part of herd mentality in some ways as well, isn't it? Where we become attuned to the, well, I guess attuned to the collective consciousness. Mm. So, pause is a good thing, even if it's a pause between sleep. And when you resist the pause, that is when you start to, I believe, you start to block your energy flow. Like when we resist anything, it puts the brakes on. So when you feel a pause, I think the best thing to do is to lean into it. Dissuade yourself from any feelings of, oh no, I must have done something wrong, or oh no, I must try harder, or whatever. Like, you know. So I guess, who's feeling a pause? Is anyone else here feeling a bit of a pause in their practice or in their business? Or, yeah, yeah. So when you feel a pause, what's your first, let's just intuitively think about this. When you feel that pause, whatever it may be, what's your first reaction? What's the first thing that you feel you need to do? What do you reckon, Kath?
Well, actually, I've been writing as you wrote because, yeah, that you're exactly right. When you first pause, suddenly there is this emptiness, and the emotion that comes with emptiness is actually not good enough. So when you're feeling
Mm,
empty, the emotion that drives that is, or the belief that drives that is not good enough, and you think, oh my God, what exactly what you said? What have I done wrong? And when you get that pause, you want to correct it or fill it and question everything you've even been doing. But, I think you've nailed it with the ball.
Mm.
Because the
Thank you.
pause is actually it's equilibrium. When a
Yeah.
ball has, when gravity is just, it's hit the point where gravity is just about to take over and the momentum of the upward lift has stopped. So if we stop thinking about pause as an empty space that has to be filled, but a space to allow, and it's actually telling us we've hit an equilibrium.
Yeah. I
There is
love it.
nowhere to, you do not need to go forward or back. It's actually, you've hit this equilibrium, and maybe it's a space to recalibrate. But at that point in time, you're actually at a good spot, not a bad spot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like flipping the thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm. Thank you. Cynthia, you said you feel the pause. Would you like to add something to this? How you feel when that happens?
Well, a bit like Kath. Um, I was kept getting these these little um, nuggets, for want of a better word. Um, it seems to me that different people would have a different response um, because of our personal expectations of what a pause is, whether it's actually happening at all, and also what it means. The belief system, the judgments, the indoctrination. So it's about meaning making. Our pause is about meaning making, and so being able to recognize it, and because the pauses are sometimes so infinitesimal, so tiny, and that we miss them because they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere in everything we do. A pause between thoughts, a pause between actions. Um, and so the outcome of a pause is how you use the pause.
Well spoken.
And so to me, the strength and the learning is learning to recognize some of the more potent but the tiny but infinitesimal pauses, learning to recognize them and recognizing that I have a choice in that moment as to what that's going to mean, because in the end, it is what I make it mean. So I'm actually finding that I've got a different relationship with pause. Um, and I think it's partly to do with the side effects of following the Walk for Peace people, because basically when you react to a pause and make it mean something about you, you're actually entering suffering. You are creating suffering on lots of levels in your being. Sometimes it can be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And also in another group that I'm part of, it's about the awareness of when the ego's operating, which is the same as, and catching it and choosing before it actually gets a chance to do damage because of your reaction. So I'm finding that I'm perhaps a bit more aware, a bit more gentle about a pause. And also, I also acknowledge that I can be making some meaning out of it so that it feels better.
Of course. Ego sneaks
Um,
in again at the other end of the spectrum.
yeah. So that it feels better, so that I feel better, because in the end, it's about how I feel.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant. Hey, thank you. Wise words, Cynthia. Yeah. Isn't ego a sneaky little thing? You know, from one extreme to the other, it just keeps wanting to have a say.
That's in effect what is the ego that's responding to the pause.
Yeah.
It's not our genius.
No.
If we can catch the ego and move into our genius, for want of a better description, the pause has a totally different meaning.
Yeah.
Like Kath so eloquently, said about it being equilibrium. That's, to me is a genius outlook as opposed to an ego outlook.
Yeah, totally.
We can learn pauses from animals and from babies and children. They do it not naturally.
That's so true. Yeah. So once again, the solution, if we actually need one, is to understand the difference between ego and essence, or genius, if we want to call it that, whatever word we give to that part of our nature, which is our, I guess, let's just call it higher self. We can call it genius, we can call it whatever we like, but we know there's a difference between what sits between your ears and what sits between your lungs, your heart and your head. And I think the key to happiness, perhaps, is getting out of your head. Lately I've been thinking about core beliefs, the 12 core beliefs. It's come up a couple of times in the last week as well. Not that I can ever remember them all to recite them, but yeah, those core wounds that sit there that create such a panacea of reactions that until we become awakened to our own self, we're not even aware that we're doing those things. Yeah. There's a guy who I know who dresses so outlandishly, and you're thinking, he rocks up looking like Ronald McDonald sometimes because he dyes his hair red and wears stripy socks. And I was thinking, why you do this, And I think it's because he feels he doesn't belong. So, interestingly enough, when we feel we don't belong, we want to belong, of course. It's human need. But if we feel we don't belong, we do all sorts of things to not belong. Like dressing outlandishly. Sort of like a cry for attention or something, isn't it?
I knew a teacher who was purposely wearing different shoes or different socks or whatever, and she noticed that the children just imitated her. So she helped them to be aware of something different and to be aware of the other person, in this case, the teacher.
Interesting.
I can actually speak to that a bit. When I left my accounting practice, I had black hair with 1 inch wide emerald green stripes in it. It was amazing. I can tell you, it was amazing. The hairdresser had made an amazing job. And I had all this makeup and everything else. It was so that the true me wasn't seen. As opposed to wanting to belong. I desperately want to belong, but it came to me later that it actually was my means of people seeing my hair, my makeup, my clothes, rather than who I really was.
But when John wore the tiara one day, a woman came over to him and she asked, "Why do you wear it?" And he said, "Just to meet you and to say hi to you." It was connection. Yeah,
It's lovely.
wonderful.
Yeah. So there's some good examples of ego, hey, and also a good example of
Changing direction.
yeah. Thank you. That's what was coming out. Thanks, Secret. Changing direction, changing in that case, changing the direction of that person's thought pattern. How lovely. Yeah. I wonder what the pause was there between thinking John was being a bit bizarre and then finding out that it was actually a gift.
And they both enjoyed the connection. She was grateful.
Yes, indeed. Now there's a shift for you, isn't it? Yeah. And they say between action and reaction, there's a pause there, isn't there? And a lot of coaches and, psychologists and stuff say that it's in the pause, it's in the space, they normally call it, between action and reaction that we actually make a choice. Whether we're going to get angry, if it's a negative thing, or whether we're going to realise that, take a breath, count to 10, and then respond more appropriately to a situation. So there's another pause. I mean, like Cynthia, like you said, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Between the words, between the breaths, between the thoughts. And that leads me to think also that in a lot of meditations and classes that I've run in the last couple of years, finding the space between the things has been a very powerful way of tuning in to spirit. I can remember having a one-on-one with John where we did it, and John went, "Whoa, that's what I'm looking for." Do you remember that, John? When we did the room, the looking around the room, and then not looking at the things, but looking at the space that's within the room. That was a cool phone call or a Zoom call that we had together. And so realistically, that space between the things is the pause.
And what people usually do, one thing, the next thing, the next thing, and when they do this thing, they think already on the next thing, blah, blah, blah. I think it's very unhealthy.
Yeah. Eckhart Tolle says that suffering is caused by identification with things, whether the things are, more boats, more cars, more camping trailers, or whether the things are more thoughts, more doing, more having, more being. And so really the pause, the space between the things, the element of ether, sort of brings it right back into the fact that the pause, where sometimes feels like a nothingness, it does for me. I seem to have countless quiet times where I don't feel connected. I've got to admit that. That's my ego, not feeling connected.
But not feeling connected is perhaps a good thing.
Yeah. And not feeling connected can't possibly be even true, because if we weren't connected, in my belief system, if we weren't connected to spirit, we wouldn't have any animating force within us. We'd be dead. And so it's the space between the things, the element of ether, that is the pause. The space between all things. That's a nice progression that we've created this morning as a collective. I like it. That'll be my second podcast on pause and purpose. But I'm really feeling spirit moving in right now. And I think we I think we could, if we want to, and we will, take a pause and just tune in and see what the field between us has to say about this as well. So I'll just guide you on a short meditation, and then we'll have a share. And I guess the intent of this meditation is just to let what we've spoken of together, just let it ruminate and sit there, with a view of allowing our ego to step aside and our essential nature, our greatness, to step forward. So just following the inflow and the outflow of your breath. Tuning into the pause between the inflow and the outflow. And of course the outflow and the inflow. Turning your attention to the center of your brain, right into your pineal gland. And breathing into your pineal gland and giving it some love. I say that's the seat of our blueprint, of our spiritual connection. Feeling the space there, the spaciousness. And then on the out breath, bringing that feeling of spaciousness from the pineal into our heart space. So shifting the center from our mind to our heart. And feeling the love. As you sit in this energy, just take note of where your mind is going. What are you thinking? Be the observer from a place of greatness. What's this human of yours percolating? Just bringing yourself back now. Give your toes a little wiggle. Take a moment just to perhaps write down any thoughts or think about anything that's been going on there in your head or your heart. Yeah, I find sometimes that my ego wants to bounce me out of those moments of connection. It's quite interesting, really. Sort of just be tuning in my quiet time, and there's that lovely feeling that we've all just experienced in one way or another. And my ego goes, "Oh, you should be doing this." And it's like, boing, off I bounce. That ball hits the ground and bounces up again. Oh dear, this being human is an interesting condition, isn't it? Who'd like to have a share about how you're feeling right now? Thanks, Cynthia.
I guess the ego doesn't feel safe.
Yeah, not when you go there, it doesn't.
Because there's no boundaries. I mean, the space was so spacious and expansive, with no edges. So without edges, the ego, I mean, mine goes wild. What came to me was that the meaning making that I was trying to do about the pause estimates the benefit of the pause. And it sort of felt like words didn't honor it. The space didn't require description. However, it was a feeling of expansive and spaciousness, and love. That's where love exists. And it felt like a space of love, light, and healing, which was in service to self and others. And it occurred to me at the time that when we are unwell, it's the space where the healing starts, when we suddenly realize that we actually do need to go to bed, and without our computer, iPad, or phone, and allow our bodies, or all levels of ourselves to heal. So it's that space in the pause that healing on all levels happens as well. But yeah, it sort of felt as if I was reducing it by putting words to it. because I was doing exactly what I do in a pause, which is trying to make meaning and trying to meet my expectations of what a pause should be like, should feel like, and should do.
Yeah. Yeah. 100% agree with you. Yeah. Being able to just sit in the pause, as we're now calling it today, without trying to define it. I think that's why they call spirit the great mystery. Yeah, that's lovely.
The purpose of a pause is to have no purpose. And then there is space. And when space is there, the spirit appears.
Absolutely. Yeah. Doing or being, hey? Where we're constantly doing, we're not just being.
I'll step in here with a couple of comments.
Yeah.
When I went into a state of pause, time disappeared.
Mm.
In the absence of time, peace and joy arise. The mind stops and intuition takes over. And you begin to see without time, three-dimensional existence is impossible. Helps you to see your greatness and your potency. And it decreases the attachment, my attachment to the 3D universe, because I see it really as a fantasy. And the reality of being is in my essence. And I guess it sort of gives me a spark and a plug with which to re-engage in this three dimensions, perhaps in a more productive way, in a more service-oriented way, caring way, more kindly. So it really allows the higher frequency, the higher energies to seep in and become a part of my life. And it's crazy.
Yeah. I think you nailed it
The
there.
other thing that it does is very effectively reduce the level of fear that I've been carrying around, because you realize the impermanency of the 3D reality, and it really gives you an opportunity to connect to the timeless, limitless, spaceless realm, I guess. And it gives me a sense of always being connected with source. And so it brings a sense of purpose, I guess. purpose and inspiration.
Wonderful. Well, this pause is good. Hey, Judy.
Yeah, what came to me was where this what just came in was the pregnant pause and that term and just the possibilities in that, the spaciousness in that. And it was like a pause steps into the infiniteness of source. And like John was saying, feeling that connection back to source where and the quantum field where there is nothing but possibility. And pause gives you a chance to really to connect back into that and to see that and to see that connection, to be with that connection. Yeah, that was what came to me.
Field of all possibilities. Yeah, the pregnant pause. I like it.
The pause is pregnant for something new.
It is. Hey, Kath.
I'll just add my tiny bit. It seemed a bit bizarre, so I wasn't going to say it. But I got that the pause is neither head nor heart space. It's just this pure energy that you can step into and reside in. So it's somewhere completely different. That's why I think we struggle with it, because it's neither in your head nor your heart. Suddenly you're in this different energy space.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Sort of like both the pineal gland in there and the heart are like portals that lead us into that space. But it is, as you say, neither of those things. It's beyond that. All those monks sitting there meditating to find that. And I do believe that the collective energy is such that these days, as we just did, 10, 15 minutes ago, we can connect in just like that. Whereas, back in the 60s when all this stuff was percolating and the Beatles had to go sit in the ashram, for instance, I was listening to a George Harrison recording a while back, and this sort of level of connection wasn't available in Western culture. They had to go to the East to get it. And these days it's just so available for us. It's really quite nice. Mm-hmm. Well, we could keep talking, couldn't we? How's everyone going?
Bouncing ideas is an absolute joy to me. I love bouncing ideas. And when I bounce ideas, if I sit down and try and come up with them, here's a belief, I hit a wall. But if I'm actually in a group or just even with someone else, that sort of tends to turn a switch to something. And then I'll spend probably the rest of the day getting annoyed because I'm trying to do something and I continue to have these ideas.
Nice.
And I have to agree. I think it is the group today has been really, really powerful, because whatever came out, even that pregnant pause I've written down, that's the beginning of a new life, a new idea. It's unlimited opportunity and potential. It's suddenly the pauses aren't for me a problem anymore. I would sit here and think, oh my God, I've got to be doing something. So today, now I'm going to look forward to them. I look forward to them because it's just this energy space that I can actually, I can either step in and use it to revive whatever, or actually invite an opportunity in. It's this pause. It's, I feel I've learned so much this morning, even though some of it came from myself. I wouldn't have recognized it, and it wouldn't have come out without what everybody else had said as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone
Thank you,
for your
everybody.
lovely energy today. Lots of love. I'll run this one through, and episode 1, Pause and Purpose, a conversation with. Lots of love, everybody. See you at Touchpoint.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Martin.
Thanks for joining us in the freezing cold there, Judy.
Wunderbar.
Lots of love. Thanks, Kath. Sigrid. Lots of love, Sigrid. Talk soon.